Did you reach out to Leah? Okay, that's good. And UM, did you reach out to Leah? Okay, that's good. And UM, did you reach out to Leah? Okay, that's good. And UM, did you reach out to Leah? Okay, that's good. And UM, did you reach out to Leah? Okay, that's good. And UM, did you reach out to Leah? Okay, that's good. And UM, did you reach out to Leah? Okay, that's good. And UM, did you reach out to Leah? Okay, that's good. And UM, did you reach out to Leah? Okay, that's good. And UM, did you reach out to Leah? Okay, that's good. And UM,
Good evening, everybody.
did you reach out to Leah?
Me.
That's good. And
Today
UM,
development of your SOS. This is actually the presentation that I sent to IMED. I present it to those. Good evening, everybody.
did you reach out to Leah?
Me.
That's good. And
Today
UM,
development of your SOS. This is actually the presentation that I sent to IMED. I present it to those. Good evening, everybody.
did you reach out to Leah? That's good. And UM,
Development. This is actually the presentation that I sent to IMED. Present it to those. Good evening, everybody.
did you reach out to Leah? That's good. And UM,
Development. This is actually the presentation that I sent to IMED. Present it to those. Good evening, everybody.
did you reach out to Leah? That's good. And
actually the presentation that I'm presented so that 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 it was typically broken into smaller cohorts to make it easier. So we have a system team. This is essentially the people that handle a lot of the programs that are not face-to-face. So competency-based, safety, quality and safety programs. They're the powerhouse of our house. The second team is our campus team. These individuals are the ones that are at all times supporting the campuses. They go in, get outreach, try to become part of the culture for it. Then we have a university that hires, they handle all our students, like graduate nurses, we have residents, we have PT, we have OT. So all these things are in there. We have a team that's specifically for new hire orientation. So they handle all the new hires that come into Advent Health with standardized processes. They're great. And then the last team would be our AHA training center that specifically handles recertifications. They handle all our students, like graduate nurses, we have residents, we have PT, we have OT. With having such a large team, orientation was something that was very important for us because we wanted to have people the opportunity to have a great foundation in simulation when we have such a robust program. So looking at that, we started kind of brainstorming of how do we move forward with orientation. And the first thing that we did was try to get some feedback from what other people have done. And it was a scary thought because the three things that came to mind that came forward out of all these conversations was my orientation was a sinking ship. I had no idea what I was doing. I was overwhelmed. And one of the last one was I just click things till they worked. And I'm like, oh my goodness. I do share the same history. Before I went to Advent Health, my orientation was no different. But I'm one of those persons that sees a problem and then decided like, hey, how do we fix this? How do we make it better? I had no idea what I was doing. I actually went to Facebook and I asked from a different chat, and this was the #1 response of people asking me, how did the orientation went? It was a laughing emoji. And that alone became one of the biggest challenges that we face. But I'm one of those persons that sees a problem and decided, like, hey, starting at the root is going back to what the Society for Simulation defines a simulation operations specialist. And they define them as an individual whose primary role is the implementation and delivery of simulation activities to the application of technology such as computers, audiovisual, or networking technologies. But as most of us can agree, the role of simulation operations specialist has evolved greatly throughout the years for things farther than just technology. We have to evolve with the growing need that simulation has created, and that's a benefit in our end. But it's also very aware that training and orientation is very important right now in our field. When I presented this in IMISH, there was about 3 or 4 SOS orientations and onboarding conversations that we're going through at the same time, just to prove the ongoing need of training. And going through a couple of the SOTS meetings, they also they advertise the need for more operational content. So reviewing some of the simulation operations specialist roles that we've seen we have the more common roles, which are the technology management. When simulation operations specialists were first thought of, they were the people who came in to help the educators with technology. We just wanted them to run the mannequins. As we grew, we got most of us that are tech or specialists, we become fidgety. We wanted to learn more about the product, so we started servicing in house, which is really a big thing for us. Then it was the common simulation implementation. We run the mannequins, we break down, we put it together. And then we became innovators. We created environments, we created task trainers. These are things that are currently coming on between us. Because most of the simulation centers that we grow right now they tend to be smaller. So we developed specialty roles. Some of us now are coordinators and implementators and running the mannequins. Some of us are managers. We are doing budgeting. We are doing scheduling. We are assisting other SOSs that are coming into our roles. Then we have hybrid roles for people who work if we have SOSs that end up being in EMS, for example. A lot of the times these people are curriculum developments and they create these hybrid roles. And last is data management, because data is very important in our roles, as this is what lets the association know that we're still needed and that what our work we are doing is valuable and how it's returning. And the more complicated and intricate our work becomes, the more our data management becomes more acceptable and more needed. So when we created an orientation process, we wanted to know what the basics are of simulation. What do our specialists need to know? If for those who are not familiar with SimGhost, this is their domains of practice. This is something that they created based on CHSEs and recommendations. And these are the things that we wanted to make sure that our staff was versed on. Audiovisual technology, how do we work our systems on our hospitals? Information technology, how do we manage upgrade, especially with our tablets and our mannequins? Research and evaluation, while it's a higher core, it's something that we wanted to give them a brief overview, but it's not necessarily one of the things that we focus in the beginning. Education, adult principles, the why of simulation is very important. Management and operations, the basics of healthcare if they have no medical background, simulation technology, and staging and theatrics. For those who have not seen this before, I do recommend that you look up SimGhost domains of practice, because it brings you a capability framework that allows you to create onboarding processes for your own SOSs if you get a chance. The basics of healthcare if they have no medical. So breaking this further, that was a lot of information. That's a lot of things that we need to cover. So how do we make it into a feasible program based on our needs as well as our time frame? So our staff created these 5 pillars: administration, principles, equipment introduction, program development, and last but not least, program implementation, because we wanted an end goal for us specialists. Whatever that end goal is, you create it yourself. So starting with the first pillar, these are things that I want you to consider when you're starting your own onboarding process for your SOSs. The first thing is, what does your organization already have available? Whether this is going to be like your HR stuff, your campus tour, it could be like WBTs. For us as a hospital base, we have our onboarding orientation for the hospital that opens up to a lot of the communications and the backgrounds of the whys. So we send them to that. But also consider for your administrative things that will make your everyday operations feasible, whether it's your email contact or access to your doors, or if you need to get keys, things like that. So things that we covered was hospital orientation. So they know about where they're working and what the values of that place, so they can keep it while we're also doing simulation. Organizational structure. Who are they working for? Not just the person that they directly report to, but the person on top of that. And the reason we did that is because our leadership likes to round around on our people, and we want to make sure that they're aware of who they're working for. And then if anything gets to the point where it needs to be escalated, who do we escalate to? We developed department manuals that does give them a brief overview of everything, so if they're not able to remember all this information, which we know is overwhelming, they can go back on their digital manual and they can get all that information there. And some of the stuff is very basic, like what uniforms to wear, clocking in and out procedures, maps and locations of all the labs. We created a point of contact list because sometimes we understand that
getting onboarded to a new place can be overwhelming, and we find that it's probably easier to ask questions to one of your peers than it is to ask a question to one of your managers. So we want to keep that door open. Also, because we like our SOSs to be autonomous, so the people that are working in the programs with them will reach out to help them out and to give them all information that's valuable for them. Along with that was we talked to them about procedures for the department, like the rules of like when to show up for a program, smart sheets, how to request things, so on and so forth. And the last two, I know it sounds silly, but introduction to Outlook was a big deal for us. The reason for that is because we don't all have the same background. Some people weren't administrative. Some people, this is the first work job that requires them to answer constant emails. So we just give them a brief overview of like how to put meetings on your calendar, or how to share meetings on your calendar. But we also talk about your signature, because you will be contacted and you will reach out to a lot of people. So we want to make sure that you're to the standards of the organization that we serve. And then last but not least was a campus tour to show everybody where exactly everything was located, and how to get there, especially when they're going to travel by themselves. This also gave them the opportunity to look at things from the outside to get a general idea of like what they're going to be doing and who they're going to be doing it with. The second step in our onboarding process was creating simulation principles. And two things that I encourage people to think about is your SOS experience level and background. So the first thing would be SOS experience level on your background. You could have medical experience people, or you can have people that come from technology based, you can have people that have none of them. So some of them are going to move faster than others, and making sure that you're not overwhelming them, or guiding them with the right people. The other thing is have a consideration of what resources you have, whether it's people within your organization, community, books, a library, so on and so forth. Okay. For us, we have a couple of things that we went over with them. The first one was Sim 101. Sim 101 is a class that was created by Simulation Learning Strategies or nurse educators that goes over the principles of simulation. So that way they are aware of things of pre-brief, debriefing, the middle, what a good simulation looks like and what a bad simulation looks like. So that way they see all these things in practice and not necessarily on a first basis. We introduce them to resources available for them, such things as our equipment acquisition, vehicle introduction, who to ask questions to, especially if we have more knowledgeable team members, they can reach out to them. We did technical pre-brief, and technical pre-brief is one of our bread and butter, because we made them constantly repeat themselves when it came to that technical pre-brief. We could start them, their day could start easily like, just give me a technical pre-brief on this room, just so they can get used to the ideas of it. We taught them how to read simulation scenarios, so they were very much aware of what the next step was going to be. And then we spoke to them briefly about the consumables available to them and our rules for consumable, because some people will reuse them and some of them cannot be reused. I do want to take a quick break right now, just to see if anybody has any questions on the first two pillars before we move on to the next one. And then we spoke to them briefly about the consumables available to them and our rules for consumable, because some people will reuse them and some of them cannot be reused. I do want to take a quick break right now, just to see if anybody has. Following that, we're going to be doing a quick before we move on to the next one. Oh yeah, no problem. And then we spoke to them briefly about the consumables available to them and our rules for consumable, because some people will reuse them and some of them cannot be reused. I do want to take a quick break right now, just to see if anybody has. So this is all onboarding for us. This is all part of the orientation process. One thing that I could tell you that we've done so far for them is the fact that, because this was recently done for improvement processes, we've created professional development days to review all these things with our current staff. So this is all onboarding for us. This is all part of the orientation process. Does that answer? You're welcome. One thing that I could tell you that the third step in the pillar was equipment introduction. What I encourage you guys, especially if you find yourself that you have a short limited amount of time to introduce your staff to equipment, is to think about your entire fleet as mannequin and task trainers and think about what things are used more often and make those your priorities.
The third step in the pillar was equipment introduction. What I encourage you guys, especially if
For
you
us,
find yourself that
you
you have
know,
a short
we
limited
have
amount of
such a
time to
large
introduce
fleet.
your staff
We have
to
SimMan
equipment,
ALSs, the
is to think
3Ds,
about
the
your entire
Junior, the
fleet
Mom, the
as
SimPat, the
mannequin and
tablet,
task
the
trainers
newbie,
and
a
think about
baby.
what things are used
So
more
all these things,
often
like
and
we need
make
to
those
make
your
sure that we
priorities.
cover what's most important for us. Our system-based simulation specialists will probably use the SimMan ALS more
For
than they
us,
would use
you know, we have
a Sim
such a
Mom or a
large
Sim
fleet.
Newbie.
We
So you
have
want to
the
make sure that
SimMan
they're very
ALSs,
versed in
the
those.
3Ds, the
Um,
Junior, the Mom, the SimPat, the
my,
tablet, the newbie,
my
the
we have
baby.
a person that
So
is
all
in
these things,
NICU
like
and
we
she
need to
uses
make
Sim
sure that
Newbie and
we
Sim
cover
Baby. So
what's
if we
most
were ever to
important for
replace
us.
her,
Our
I hope not,
system-based
but we would make sure that
simulation
SOS was
specialists
more
will
versed on
probably
those
use the
mannequins for
SimMan
that reason.
ALS more than they would use
We did
a
task
Sim
trainer
Mom or a
reviews
Sim
and we
Newbie.
did
So you
audio
want to make
visual
sure that
reviews
they're
with
very
them as
versed in
well.
those.
And then we had a whole class on Sim Pad and
My
tablet.
we
When it
have a
comes to
person
equipment
that is
introduction,
in
this could
NICU and she
potentially
uses Sim
be
Newbie
the
and
most
Sim Baby. So if
overwhelming
we were
part
ever
for
to
them,
replace her, I
because
hope
there is
not,
just a
but
lot to
we would
cover
make sure
with the
that SOS was
simulators.
more versed on
And
those
with
mannequins
short
for
amount
that
of
reason.
time that sometimes we find ourselves, like,
We
how do
did
we
task
review
trainer
everything to make
reviews
sure
and
that
we did
everything's
audio visual
standardized with
reviews
them?
with them as well. And then we
So
had
one thing that we did was to
Pat
create
and tablet.
a
When it comes
checklist
to
for
equipment
them that
introduction,
pretty
this
much
could
went over
potentially be
startup,
the most
anatomy,
overwhelming part for them,
troubleshooting, maintenance, and transport,
because
and
there
we
is just
broke
a lot to
everything
cover
down.
with the
Um,
simulators. And with
we
short amount of
encourage
time
our
that sometimes we
preceptors
find
to
ourselves,
essentially
like,
go
how do
this
we
with
review
them, but
everything
this
to
is
make
just
sure
a
that
very
everything's
quick guide
standardized with
for
them?
them to be aware of, like, every little
So
thing
one
that we
thing that
really
we
want them
did
to
was to
know.
create
Um,
a
and I know
checklist
that
for
at
them
first sight,
that
it can be
pretty much
something
went
that could be
over
overwhelming
startup,
because there's just so much
anatomy,
massive
troubleshooting,
information,
maintenance, and
which is
transport.
the
And we
reason
broke
why these
everything
cards
down.
are highlighted in yellow, because
We
realistically, what
encourage
you want to
our
concentrate on
preceptors
all the major
to
factors.
essentially go this
And
with
while
them,
there
but
is a
this is
lot of
just a very
information,
quick
when you
guide
break
for
it
them to be
down,
aware of,
the
like,
things that
every
you should
little thing that
review
we
with
really
every
want them to
mannequin
know.
is always going to be your startup procedures,
And I know that at first
your
sight, it can be
troubleshooting,
something that could
and
be
your anatomy
overwhelming because
review, which
there's
is your
just so much
capabilities.
massive
So
information,
those are the things that
which
we
is the
wanted them
reason
to like
why
pop
these
out
cards
and
are
check out.
highlighted in yellow,
These
because
checklists were great
realistically,
because
you want to
if they
concentrate
were
on all
ever
the
on
major
their own
factors.
and they wanted
And
to
while
start
there
the
is a lot of
simulator, we were
information,
able to
when
give
you break
this
it
to
down,
them
the
for
things
them
that you
to
should review
review
with
as they're doing
every
it on their
mannequin
own.
is always going to be
And
your
we can
startup
also
procedures,
make comments to see, like,
your
hey, we really need to work
troubleshooting,
with them a
and
little
your
bit more
anatomy
on
review,
this.
which is your
Or
capabilities.
we've noticed
So those
these
are the things
things
that we
that
wanted them to
um,
pop out and check out.
were just
These
not
checklists were
beneficial
great
in their
because
training process.
if they were ever on their own and they wanted to start the simulator, we were able
The
to give this to
last
them
the second
for
to
them
last thing
to
we did was
review as
program
they're doing it on
development,
their
and this
own.
was
And
the
we
bread
can
and butter
also
of us. The reason for
make
this is
comments and
because
say,
our
like, hey, we really need
SOSs
to work with
are
them a little
what
bit
we
more on
called
this.
small program
Or we've
managers.
noticed
They're
these
given a
things that
program, and it's their job to coordinate a lot of the
were
factors
just
of it
not
after the
beneficial in their
scenario is
training
built.
process.
So equipment acquisition, if you're using SPs,
The
if you need to
the
the
second to
transport
last thing we
there.
did was program development,
So
and this
for
was
us,
the
when you're
bread and butter of
considering
us. The
program
reason for this is
development,
because our
I
SOSs
encourage your
are
staff to always
what we
know who are
call
you
small
supporting and
program
what
managers.
programs are you
They're
supporting.
given a program, and it's
And the
their
reason
job
why
to
I
coordinate a
do
lot of the
say that
factors
is
of it
because
after the
knowing your
scenario is built.
customer or knowing
So
your
equipment
learner is
acquisition,
important,
if
as
you're using
important as it is for the
SPs, if
educator, is
you
going to
need
be
to
equally
the
as
transport
important
there.
for the SOS,
So
because
for us,
this
when
is
you're
going to help
considering
their planning
program development,
capability. A
I
graduate
encourage your
nurse
staff to always
will
know
go
who are
through
you
a
supporting and what
scenario
programs
sometimes
are you supporting.
significantly
And the reason
slower
why
than
I
an
do say
expert
that is
resident.
because knowing your
And getting
customer
them
or
used to
knowing your
having these
learner
people
is
and knowing how to
important.
work with these
As
people is going to
important
make
as
their
it is
job
for the
easier and in
educator,
turn
it's
your
going to
job
be
easier
equally
as
as
well
important for the SOS.
So for
Because
this, we
this
created
is
a
going to
program
help their
procedure
planning
class.
capability.
And it's
A
really just a
graduate
class that goes
nurse
from start
will
to
go through
finish
a
on what your role
scenario
is
sometimes
when you're
significantly
building a simulation.
slower than
From
an expert
who do we
resident.
reach out to get the
And
equipment?
getting
What
them
is the
used to
correct
having these
equipment?
people and knowing how to work
Who
with
do
these
we reach
people
out
is
to
going to
get
make their job
the
easier and
vans,
in turn your job
the
easier as well
supplies,
for the
um,
SOS. So
the
for
point of
this, we created a
contacts,
program
and all
procedure
these little things, and how do we communicate with our team. We had them meet with their simulation learning strategist who talked to them about the ADDIE model. And the simulation learning strategist is the person that builds all our scenarios and creates them for the organization and then transfers them over to the SOSs for support. We talked about moulage and how to make different types of moulage with them as well. We talked about all the programs that they could potentially handle, especially if they're being hand-off programs at that point, they have time to review them. But most importantly, we talked about smart book creation. And smart book creation is our way of documenting. If just like nursing, if it's not documented, it didn't happen and it can't be replicated. So with each program, we do something very similar to the ADDIE model that our learning strategist goes. We analyze all the information that's given to us. The smart book is designed. We develop it, we implement it, and then we make any changes as needed. So things that we like to document on our smart books are our program objectives. I encourage my SOSs to always work on this hybrid model of the why. Why are we doing something? Because a lot of the times you find that people don't feel like the objectives are important for the SOS, but if they don't know what the end goal is, how do we get there? How do we get that map? Scenarios. This is great for backup. If for any reason any of the scenarios gets replaced, misplaced, broken, like having them in a general area that you can easily print out makes it easier, but also the scenarios provide so much information that's not only useful for the SOSs, but the SLSs and anybody that can be in there. Our simulation transition sheets are our vital sign sheets, so they're easier to read for when we don't need all the information in the middle. So we always have them document these as well. What mannequin and tap cleaners were used, what consumables and supplies were used, what is the actual setup? Those are things that we set up for them as well. And we ask them to include pictures of these setups. So that way it's easy replicated. Any special instructions like, hey, you got to get there at 7 a.m. because the doors open then, or you need the specific task trainer from the other campus, not this campus. And then any data entry. So like we have QR codes to get any kind of evaluation. So we ask them to put those in there as well. All in a one-stop shop. After the program is done, we have them review their smart books to assure that there's any changes. And the very important part of these smart books are if for any reason our SOS decides that, hey, I'm going to transition to something else, the next person can pick up that smart book and do the program like it's been done and validated for many, many times without any concerns or having to have this massive introduction to them as well. The last step in our onboarding is the program implementation part. And this is your end goal. This is what you want your person to be able to do at the end of the 60 days, 30 days, 90 days. So it's going to be different for everybody. For us, because we are many program managers, we want them to be able to run their assigned program without assistance or with minor assistance. Mock codes are probably one of our biggest programs. So we also want them to be able to run their mock codes appropriately with really minimal support and comfort. It's going to be different for everybody. And once again, once you're done with your own onboarding process, we encourage you guys to go through the ADDIE model again, analyze it, design it, develop, implement, and evaluate it. What went well, what didn't go so well. But get your new hire on board in this review process, because even if they are not versed in simulation, they can explain to you like, this was overwhelming, this was not enough information, I think this could have done better. And it also includes them in their own job growth. What went well, what didn't go so well. So this is an example of like, this is all changes. This was the original idea for our onboarding process. And this was done because in the beginning, we only had one SOS that was essentially our master SOS. And this person would sit down, would evaluate what was the most important things that they had to cover in that short amount of day. And then they would email the managers and say, hey, this is what we got done. But it was things as like AV, SimMan, Leap introduction, change on monitors, your pre-brief, your smart sheets, your checklist, so on and so forth. And through the ADDIE model and growth, we've created something that was a lot easier for us to keep track of. And once again, it went over the 5 pillars that were created, such as our admin, our principles, our introduction, program development, and program implementation. This is only one of the many checklists that we have. As you can see from the bottom, there is a checklist for the ALS, the junior, the baby, the newbie, so they can keep a file of what was done and they can review it based on that. We can also forward this to their hiring, to their manager, their new hire and when it was completed. So that way we can keep track of when all this was said and done. Now, while I encourage you guys to notice that there is a lot of information, but it's based on the level of things that we require them to do with any growth and any onboarding plan, realize that there's 3 levels that we encourage you guys to get to. There's the foundation. So the foundation of your SOSs. So that might be your simple 30-day plan. Then your intermediate, which could be potentially your 60-day plan, and your senior, which is something that you're growing out. Our plan was probably built at an intermediate level because the people that we were onboarding had some background to it. But we also had a couple of new hires that were on foundation level, so things were modified in terms of what facilitators we handed them to, the time frame that we're given, and the level of intention that we gave them. Our plan was probably built in an intermediate level. Don't stop there with your SOSs. I think there's more to it, and this is how we continue to grow in our organizations. So once your SOS is onboarded, how do we keep them to a level that would benefit the program as a whole? The first thing is sending them professional conferences such as IMISH, SimGhost, or SimOps. Sending them to professional groups. SimGhost or SSH memberships are valuable. I always encourage people to go to social media, such as Facebook groups. Instagram is a pretty good place. Books, YouTubes, any local groups. You can see today we're hanging out at the FHSA. Encourage your SOSs to come to places like this because they're either going to know the why of simulation or they can bring in their own conversations to encourage other SOSs to grow in their field. Think about mentoring within the organization, not only in simulation, but above as well. So if your department has strong ties to another department, like maybe having them go over there and shadow what they do so you understand the basics of what they're doing. If you want your SOS to coordinate or schedule and that's not something that's their strong suit, maybe reaching out to a couple of your administrative assistants to teach them about scheduling techniques and conversations like that. Advanced degrees. I think this always becomes one of the biggest conversation starters when it comes to SOSs. Why do I need an advanced degree? Why is this moving forward? So on and so forth. The reason why is as our job continues to evolve, the need of an advanced degree is going to be there, unfortunately. If your SOS wants to be a manager, it's a lot easier to do a lot of the administrative stuff with some kind of background to it. And it also gives strong conversations when they want to move forward with something else. If your center goes from a center of 2 to a center of 5, you need a manager or a director. All these things kind of back up your capabilities. And then certifications, the CHSE and the CHSE A are still there. They're very big certifications. The fun fact is that our orientation process was also built around the CHSE, so it gives them the hope that that once they get done with their orientation and get a solid foundation, they could test in those 2 years. They're very big if anybody's looking for any resources, here's a couple of ones I've tagged that are my favorite. As far as books, your healthcare simulation and guide for operations specialists is solid. A comprehensive healthcare simulation operation technology and innovative practice. Defining excellence in simulation programs is one of the best books out there, and they actually just got a second edition. If you have not checked it out, please do. As far as Facebook and social media, you have the healthcare simulation group on Facebook and Simulation Technician Network. YouTube, This Old Mannequin, great conversations, and manufacturer specific stages helps them with things like just troubleshooting any technical issues that they might have. And with that, that was my presentation. I apologize for the long length of conversation, but if you have any questions, I'll be happy to take them now. YouTube, This Old Mannequin, great conversations, and manufacturer specific stages helps them with things like just troubleshooting any technical issues that they might have. And with that, that was my presentation. I apologize for the long length of conversation, but if you have any questions, I'll be happy to take them now. YouTube, This Old Mannequin, great conversations, and manufacturer specific stages helps them with just troubleshooting. Yeah, the healthcare dictionary. I thought I put that in there. And with that, that was my presentation. I apologize for the long length of conversation, but
Oh, the
Mhm.
healthcare dictionary. I thought I put that in there. I completely agree with you. I apologize. I really think I put that in my PowerPoint presentation. We do have a copy of it in most of our simulation centers for that reason too. Um, we go over basic medical terminology, and that's something that we do put on as smart books as well. So if people see
Mhm.
something that they don't feel that the next person
I
will
completely
remember,
agree with
like
you. I apologize. I
you
really
know, our
think I
facilitators
put
like to
that
put
in my
PPV
PowerPoint presentation.
on the
We do have a
scenarios a
copy
lot,
of it
and
in most of our
people don't,
simulation
some
centers for that reason
non-medical
too.
background are not going to understand positive pressure
We
ventilation.
go over
So
basic
we make
medical
sure to break
terminology, and
that
that's
down for them
something
as
that we do
well. But
put
that
on
great
as
points.
smart books as well. So if people see something that they don't feel that the next person
I
will
completely
remember,
agree
like
with you. I apologize. I
you
really
know, our
think I
facilitators
put
like to
that
put
in my
PPV
PowerPoint presentation.
on the
We do have a
scenarios a
copy
lot,
of it
and
in most of our
people don't,
simulation
some
centers for that reason
non-medical
too.
background are not going to understand positive pressure
We
ventilation.
go over
So
basic
we make
medical
sure to break
terminology,
that
and
down
that's
for them
something
as
that we
well.
do
But
put
that
on
great
as
points.
smart books as well. So if people see something that they don't feel that the next person will remember, like you know, our facilitators like to put PPV on the scenarios a lot, and people don't, some non-medical Yeah,
background are
I
not
will
going to
send
understand
them your
positive
way.
pressure ventilation. So we make sure to break that down for them as well. But that great points. So if people see something that they don't feel that the next person will remember, like you know, our facilitators like to put PPV on the scenarios a lot, and people don't, some non-medical
Yeah,
background are
I
not
will
going to
I think it
understand
was just
positive pressure
Melissa.
ventilation. So we make sure to break
Melody
that down
still
for
had
them as well.
is still
But that
on.
great points.
Thank you, Melody. I will make sure to send those to you.
Yeah, I will
I
send
think
them
it was
your
just
way.
Melissa. Melody still had is still on. Thank you, Melody. I will make sure to send those to you. I think it was just Melissa. Melody still had is still on. Thank you, Melody. I will make sure to send those to you. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Melissa.
You're welcome. Thank you.